Hi, I'm Kelly Slater. I want to welcome you to the video for the Quiksilver Pro France 2003. We have 5 different contest sites. We have an 11-day waiting period. We have all the best surfers in the world.
The ASP stars have crossed the Atlantic for the pivotal European leg, with the first stop at the famous French breaks of Hossegor, Capbreton, Seignos, and Saint-Jean-de-Luz.
The Quiksilver Pro in France this year was an exciting contest for wildcards.
As the day dawned on the first round of competition, surfers were greeted by solid 3-foot waves at the break of Les Bourdaines, and it didn't take long for the first upset of the Quiksilver Pro France, with wildcard Troy Brooks enhancing his giant-killing reputation by defeating world number 6 Kieran Perot and the Brazilian Victor Ribas.
I'm fortunate enough to get a few wildcards, and I like to do my best when I get the chance and do something with it. I've sort of been out here all last month practicing these waves, and fortunate enough to pull through and got through that one.
2 of the wildcards, Fred Robin and Patrick Bevan, both of France, won their first heats against a couple of the top seeds in the contest, Andy Irons and Joel Parkinson.
Surfing on familiar waves, Patrick Bevan used his backhand attack to perfection. The Frenchman's total of 17.16 was the second highest of all first-round scores, and good enough to outduel an in-form Hawaiian Kalani Robb and last year's world number 2, Joel Parkinson.
I'm so happy, feel great. All the people, all my friends here, and watch me, and everybody see my potential.
Fred Robin faced an even more daunting prospect with WCT veteran Jake Patterson and world champion Andy Irons his opponents in round 1. But if the man from the small French colony of Reunion Island was intimidated by the lofty company, it didn't show in his surfing. He delighted the local fans by carving his way to victory over his more experienced rivals, the Frenchman narrowly outpointing Patterson with an out-of-sorts Irons finishing a distant 3rd. While Andy made a shaky start, the other championship frontrunners were very impressive. Taj Burrow was at his devastating best, and wildcard Jonathan Gonzalez and American Pat O'Connell had no answer. The 25-year-old Western Australian continued on with the form that saw him finish 2nd to the Boost Mobile Pro in California. He posted the highest total of the opening round, including a spectacular ride of 9.33, a relaxed Taj cruising into the next round.
It's probably the first year I'm comfortable with my position, and I don't really feel much pressure. I kind of feel like all the focus is on Andy and Kelly, which is kind of cool. Those guys are kind of battling it out, but I'm stoked. Just through the last few events, I've kind of sneaked up into 3rd behind them, and yeah, I don't know, it's exciting. I'm pretty excited about the next few events.
World number 2 Kelly Slater was also very solid in his first heat of the contest. The 6-time world champion was back in the water after a 3-week break. Riding a new board, he comfortably outpointed defending champion Neco Padarats and Portugal's Tiago Perez to advance straight into the 3rd round. Kelly keeping a close eye on his nearest rival for the World Championship.
And he's got to surf the next round. He's obviously got the surfing there. His heat this morning, he just didn't look like he was on at all, though. Just looked like his timing was off, his head didn't look like it was there. And so, he may be just going through a little bit of a strange period last couple events, and I'm sure he'll turn it around here quick enough.
And the other round 1 winners, Luke Stedman, Toby Martin, Mick Campbell, Guillermo Hurdy, and Armando Daltro. First in the water was world champion Andy Irons, who wasn't his usual self on day 1. And he needed to be back to his best for his round 2 clash with the informed Tiago Perez, who advanced to the main draw by winning the Quiksilver Trials. The 25-year-old Kauaian raised the bar with a near-perfect 9.67. The world champion relieved to be back on track as he looks to maintain his lead in the ratings.
I'm just taking it round by round and heat by heat like last year and not try to get ahead of myself. That's usually my biggest thing, is I freak myself out, so I'm my own worst enemy. So deal with myself and then deal with the other guys next.
World number 5, Mick Fanning, also bounced back to his best form, posting an impressive 9.1 thanks to a long stint inside one of the La Gravière barrels. That score helped set the platform for a comfortable win over local wildcard Mickey Picon.
We had a couple of upsets, big upsets in round 2. We had Jake Patterson losing to Phil McDonald, and we also had Trent Monroe beating Neko Podarats, who was the winner from last year's event.
Australian Trent Monroe has been in sparkling form on the second-tier WQS Tour. That meant that it was going to be a difficult day at the office for defending Quiksilver Pro champion Neko Podarats. The Brazilian gave it his all as he chased back-to-back wins, but the 24-year-old Aussie had Neko's measure, advancing to round 3 with a combined score of 15.5. Philip McDonald is another member of the huge Australian contingent on the ASP World Tour. As both surfers struggled to find high-scoring rides in testing conditions, McDonald did enough to maintain the cushion he established early, eliminating the more experienced Patterson to advance into round 3. Taylor Knox, the Californian powerhouse, was at his awesome best, showcasing his trademark forehand carves to tear up the La Gravière break, opening his account with an 8.17 against Australia's Darren O'Rafferty. Captain America, Knox, was very aware of the importance of the ASP's European leg. He ended the heat in impressive fashion with a stylish aerial. Australia's Kieran Perot was another to move into round 3, with one of the rides of the day to narrowly account for American Tim Curran. The rest of the round 2 winners included Flavio Podarats, Fabio Gouveia, Victor Ribas, Joel Parkinson, and Luke Egan. One of surfing's biggest attractions is the lifestyle it affords its disciples, and no better place is this on display than in the southwest of France, where a cool blend of French and Basque traditions collide with the culture of surfing. Starting at Hossegor in the north and running all the way down to Saint-Jean-de-Luz in the south, you'll find a relaxed outdoor cafe lifestyle, spectacular architecture, and a beautiful climate. With a reputation of having Europe's best beach breaks, the burgeoning sport has become a much more integral part of life. The 2002 ASP Rookie of the Year, Mick Fanning, was in sensational form, which meant fellow Aussie Toby Martin was facing an almost impossible task. Fanning blitzed the heat, posting a pair of 8-point rides to more than double his opponent's total. The 22-year-old with his eyes firmly set on the ultimate prize in professional surfing, the ASP World title.
This leg that we've got now is really important. It'll probably be, like the world title will probably be decided in these next few events. So yeah, just trying to, just keep it all together and yeah, hopefully make a final or something.
Shane Powell and Quiksilver team rider Danny Wills were next in the water. As Powell struggled with wave selection, Wills sealed the win by pulling into an epic barrel on his last wave of the day. He was rewarded by the judges with a 9-point out of 10 and a berth into round 4. The level of surfing was already very impressive, but Taj Burrow was about to take it to another level. Going up against Luke Stedman, Taj was on. He pulled into a La Gravière tube that seemed to go on forever, and when he emerged, the judges replied with the single best wave score of the event so far, a near-perfect 9.93. And just for good measure, Burrow followed that up with a 9.33, the result the highest combined total at the Quiksilver Pro France. Stedman blown out of the water as Taj punctuated his day with a massive air. Break! Most of the time, 19.26 would be hard to top for the highest total at any WCT event. But as Andy Irons looked on, Burrow's mark didn't last long thanks to the efforts of 6-time world champion Kelly Slater.
In the same round, I surfed against Troy Brooks, which I was expecting to be quite a difficult heat because Troy's a really good surfer and he's always good at finding the waves. But I ended up having one of my best heats of the year. One of the top scoring heats I've had in my career, and I found some really nice waves.
Scoring a 10 first off, Kelly followed up perfection with more of the same, tearing up another La Gravière wave to post a 9.3. That left Brooks needing something extraordinary. His attempted Superman air got the attention of the fans, but it was an in-form Slater who advanced into round 4.
I like the waves. I love the waves here. I've been coming here since I was 17, and I won my first contest here at this beach on the tour, 11 years ago at Hossegor here. So it's a place I love coming back to. It's really relaxing.
We had Fred Robbins surfing against Andy Irons again. He beat Andy in round 1, and everyone was looking to see what Fred could do because he's a really tough competitor, and he's really good at finding good waves, but Andy was able to beat him in that heat.
With fellow world title contenders Burrow and Slater in sensational form, Irons rose to the occasion, opening with an 8.17. Despite the ideal 6-foot offshore conditions, Irons and Robin both struggled with wave selection towards the end of the heat. Still, the end result was a comfortable win for the reigning world champion.
I'm just glad to be out of wild card. Seems to be my hardest thing lately. Last 2 contests I lost the wild card, so I'm just glad to be surfing against the guys I surfed against all year. And I know a little more what to expect.
Next up for Irons, the winner of the all-Aussie clash between Mick Campbell and Nathan Hedge. Campbell followed the pattern of spectacular scoring in round 3, locking in a 9.17 with his opening ride. And just to show it was no fluke, his second wave was a near-perfect 9.5. The committed Port Macquarie goofy footer had Irons in his sights after dominating the heat. Last year's world number 2, Joel Parkinson, was expected to join the rest of the big names in the 4th round, and he looked to be on track after scoring an 8.17 with his opening ride. Frenchman Patrick Bevan had other ideas. Surfing waves he's ridden thousands of times, he used that hometown knowledge to find the high-scoring barrels. He then followed up the 8-point ride with a 9.33 after pulling a deep inside tube on his second-to-last wave. The French fans were ecstatic as the local favorites scored the biggest upset of round 3.
We know we can beat these guys, but contest is a game, so have to play the game.
In round 3, some of the big news was Phil McDonald beating Aki.
Aki drew first blood in what turned out to be a hotly contested heat. But Macca, the second-year CT surfer, charged back into calculations by locking in a powerful 8.5. And when he posted a 7.83 with just 3 minutes remaining in the heat, he was in front for good. In an all-Brazilian affair, Paulo Moura made the faster start, scoring an 8 with his opening ride. But the experience of Peterson, the Animal Rosa, shone through, the natural footer clawing his way back into the heat. With a spot in the 4th round in the balance and less than 3 minutes until the end of the heat, Rosa posted a 7.87 to regain the lead for good. His final wave enough to edge his compatriot by just 0.27 of a point. Other round 3 winners include Guilherme Hurdy, Taylor Knox, Shea Lopez, Trent Monroe, Kieran Perot, and Bo Emerton. And once again, it was Kelly Slater who led the charge, taking on a determined Peterson Rosa. The man regarded as the greatest surfer of all time locked in 2 high-scoring rides before the Brazilian had even caught a wave. Slater opened with a 7.83 before bettering that with an 8.5, but the best was yet to come. Kelly emerged from a ridiculously long tube ride and must have thought his second perfect 10 of the Quiksilver Pro France was in the cards. But the judges didn't agree, and he settled for a 9.8, still more than enough to steal a spot in the quarterfinals.
Before I went out there, my friend and I were talking about how it looks a bit like Jeffreys Bay, the way the face is and how it's peeling across. So, you know, I just came off a win at Jeffreys and feel good about that, and this is the board I rode. Whoever's going to win right now, it's probably going to take better than third or better at the next 4 events. That's what I'm trying to expect of myself, you know, to get that far in each event, because it's going to be a tight one in the end.
Andy Irons and Australian Mick Campbell posted 2 of the highest totals in round 3, so some serious fireworks were expected in their round 4 matchup. And come they did, but all emitting from one source. The Kauaian was once again quick off the blocks, punctuating his 9-point opening ride with a huge double grab frontside air. Irons then pulled into 2 perfect La Gravière barrels on his next ride, the result an 8.5 and an unassailable combination score. The world champion was having a ball in the best conditions of the contest so far.
Oh, the waves are total skate park. It's really high performance, rippable. The conditions are just epic. It's nice and glassy with light offshores, and yeah, it's just some really good surfing today. I can't wait to watch the later heat.
In round 4, Patrick Bevan came up against Trent Munro, and I think everyone in France was really excited to see Patrick have another win.
Things looked promising for the Frenchman as he locked in a 9-point ride to take control of his heat against Trent Munro. But the 24-year-old Australian has performed well in the European WQS events this year, and he called on that experience to post an 8, which was followed up by a decent 7.67 to give him a narrow lead. The door was still open for Bevan, who only needed a 6.67 to retake the lead. Unfortunately for the local fans, he fell at the critical moment, and his fairy tale run was finally at an end. The Danny Wills-Mick Fanning heat was one of the most eagerly anticipated of round 4 matchups. As world number 5, Fanning came in as the higher ranked of the 2. The Australian had showed some pretty impressive form up to this point, and there were flashes of his best again here. But Wills is one of the most consistent surfers on tour, and after a below-par performance in California, he was determined to return to his best. The 28-year-old controlled the heat from the outset thanks to a couple of clean barrels, those higher-scoring rides proving the difference as Wills outpointed his fellow Australian.
Had a pretty rough trot at Trestles, and I sort of only got, I think, about 3 or 4 ways in total at both heats, so I was pretty disappointed. So I thought this event I'll just try and get a few ways, you know, just get half a dozen ways of heat, and I'm starting to feel good. I feel like I'm starting to come together, so hopefully I can keep going.
The closest clash in the 4th round was between Guillermo Hurdy and world number 3, Taj Burrow. Hurdy still had the upper hand with 7 minutes remaining. But Burrow hit the front thanks to one of his trademark high wire floaters, helping him score a much-needed 8.77. Taj doing enough to keep pace with his world title rivals and advance to the final 8 of the Quiksilver Pro. The other round 4 winners were Americans Taylor Knox defeating Australian Mick Lowe, Shea Lopez, who scored an 8.5 late in his heat to edge world number 6 Kieran Perot by just 1 point, and Australia's Phil McDonald also moved through after ending Trent Munro's run, Macca into the quarterfinals at a WCT event only for the 2nd time in his career. As the final day of the waiting period dawned, organizers awoke to see they'd hit the jackpot.
We had really good conditions, but the tide was dropping, so we were going to have to wait for the high tide.
Hollow barrels and some of Europe's best waves of the past few months were hitting the sandbank at La Gravière on a magical French day. Quarterfinal 1 was a matchup of 2 hard-charging Aussies. An informed Taj Burrow made his intentions clear right from the start, locking in an 8.67 to one of the longest barrels of the event. Not to be outdone, Danny Wills answered back with a tube ride of his own as he battled his way into the heat, a 7.83, meaning he still had a chance of pulling the upset. As the Wills clan watched on, both Aussies performed at an extremely high level in sensational surf, Danny desperately trying to make his first semifinal of the season. But it wasn't to be, Burrow carving his way into the semis for the 4th time this year. Quarterfinal 2 brought together Taylor Knox and the seemingly unstoppable Andy Irons. Once again, the reigning world champion was at his high-flying best with another ridiculously huge aerial. The judge's reward was a 7.83, which Andy then followed up with a 6.33, more than adequate in the testing conditions. That score left Knox needing a combination total, but it just wasn't going to happen. And as Irons marched on, a disappointed Knox bowed out. The third quarterfinal was an all-Australian affair between Trent Monroe and dark horse Phil McDonald. Both struggled with their wave selection throughout, which meant good rides were at a premium. McDonald waited almost 10 minutes for his opening ride, but he made it count with an 8.5. In contrast, Monroe was unable to get anything going, catching only 3 waves for the entire heat, combining his 2 highest scores for a meager total of 7.83. McDonald already had that covered, and he finished off his fellow Aussie by locking in a 6.67 with his final wave. Macca continuing his fairy tale run, advancing to his first ever WCT semi-final.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good at the moment, and beautiful conditions, and the waves are only improving, so I think by the time I surf next, there should be some nice barrels. So yeah, I'm just really stoked to be out there and surfing, good waves.
It wasn't going to get any easier for McDonald, with his semi-final opponent to be decided by the contest between Shea Lopez and a white-hot Kelly Slater. The 6-time world champion was the informed surfer of the contest and expected to continue his domination of the event.
In my quarterfinal heat, I had Shea Lopez from Florida, who's a really tough competitor. He's always on the good waves. We call him the wave magnet because he's always catching the good waves. And as soon as the heat started, this perfect wave came, and he was in the right spot. He got a 9.8. Looking back on video, it looked to me to be maybe even be a 10.
But that was as good as things would get for the older of the Lopez brothers, his problem compounded by the fact Slater was only warming up. Kelly got better and better as the heat progressed, dropping into another unbelievable barrel that added to his swag of big scores, this one a 9.93. Lopez tried to replicate his blazing start to the heat, and the 29-year-old did have his moments, but they weren't up to the standard of his hometown rival. A ballistic Slater storming into the Final Four in spectacular style. And the appreciative French fans were loving every minute of it. In a dream scenario for the event promoters, the top 3 surfers in the world were through to the semi-finals. Add an Aussie bolter who was mixing in uncharted territory, and the stage was set for a thrilling end to the Quiksilver Pro France.
In the semifinals, things got really crucial. We had Andy and Taj surfing against each other on one side of the draw.
And you could toss a coin as to who was going to win this one, with both surfing at their electrifying best for most of the contest. Taj grabbed an early lead with a 7.5. But Andy was back in the driver's seat after posting a spectacular 9.33 thanks to another amazing tube ride. With the conditions still pumping, Burrow briefly retook the lead with a wave of 7.33. But against a surfer of Irons' caliber, that was never going to be enough. The Hawaiian sealed the Western Australians' fate with a second wave score of 6.73 to advance to his 4th WCT final of the year, while Burrow was left to lament what might have been.
Semis was an amazing result. I'm stoked, but for the other 2 guys that look like they're going to place ahead of me, it kind of takes the, I don't know.
Irons made no secret of his preferred finals opponent.
Hopefully Macker takes him out, though. I don't want to really deal with Kelly right now. He's looking like he's really red hot.
Semi-final number 2 was expected to be one-sided, with Phil McDonald taking on Kelly Slater.
I was feeling really confident. And sometimes when you go against a guy that when you're feeling really confident, a lot of times it works against you. And that's what happened in this heat. I started off really fast. I got some good waves, and then he got a 9.33, and so he had the stronger high wave in the heat. And then I had priority towards the end of the heat with about 4 or 5 minutes left, and I let him go on a wave. It to me didn't look very good, but he scored a 7.67, I think, about a 7.7, and he ended up pulling ahead of me, and I couldn't find another good wave with the time left in the heat to try to catch him again.
The Aussie coming from nowhere to score an unforgettable win.
I've grown up in waves like this. I know how to tube ride. It didn't faze me. I just thought, to beat him, I've got to get the best waves. And, luckily that first one came through and I got a nice barrel. And, there's no pressure on me. I'm just out there having fun. And he ended up giving me wave when he had priority, and I just got the score. So, yeah, it was kind of my day, maybe.
The final matchup presented a clash of two surfers at opposite ends of the scale. For Phil McDonald, this was new territory. It's only his second year on the WCT, and he'd never advanced beyond the quarters at an event, so a win at the Quiksilver Pro France would be beyond his wildest dreams.
Well, I think in the final, everyone was expecting for Andy to do well and to probably win the contest. And those type of waves, Andy's super good in. And on his first two waves, he scored an 8 and a 9.5, and the heat was pretty much over at that point. I think he might have even scored 1 or 2 better waves than that. And then Phil just played catch up the whole time. He only had 1 good wave. And there were quite a few waves coming in, but the tide got kind of high. Andy capitalized on it. Seemed to be in the right spot at the right time, like he has all year and all last year. And that's the way the contest went.
The most important thing is not trying to freeze things so you're sure that you will never.
His reward, a check for $30,000 US, but more importantly, 1,200 priceless rating points.
Feels incredible, top of the world. Just feels good to be in the final and to win in conditions like that. It's just an amazing feeling. I mean, this is where your job really comes into be, what I love to do. And when the waves are like that, I mean, just so happy right now. It feels unreal. I had 2 bad contests in a row, and I started to feel like I was losing my form. And to get it back in France, it's such a clutch part of the year. I mean, it feels amazing. Stoked.
I've had a couple of little results here and there. I think the second, I suppose, is a good confidence boost, and beat a couple of pretty good guys on the way. So I think I'm just stoked to be in the final. Would have been good to take it, but there's always next week.
It's the 4th time this year and the 10th time in his career that Andy Irons has accepted the winner's trophy at a WCT event. And at only 25 years of age, it's a safe bet to say there'll be plenty more visits to the winner circles for the Kauai Kid, the leader of the Wolf Pack, the man known as AI.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in with us. I'm going to say bye, and we'll see you next year.
She ran away for the holidays, said she's going to LA, but she never got down, she never got down, she never got down, they say it. She ran away for the holidays, said she's going to LA, but she never got down, she never got down, she never got down, they say it. Yeah, took my baby away, it took me away from me. Yeah, took my baby away, it took me away from me, yeah. Hey! Oh! Hey! Well, I don't know where my baby could be. They took her away from me. I don't know where my baby could be.
Yeah! Andy Irons and Australian Mick Campbell posted 2 of the highest totals in round 3, so some serious fireworks were expected in their round 4 matchup. Yeah, love it.